Welcome to a football show here live from the Cast Collective studio in the heart of Nashville on Music Row. Of course, that is thecastcollective.com. His name is Zach. My name is Braden. Welcome to the product. Of course, if you have any questions about a football game that will actually take place on Thursday evening today,
put them in the comments.
And this is why you listen to the show and watch the show live. We will ask those questions. We will answer all those questions, of course, live today on the show.
We may ask our own questions.
We have many. I have many. We will attempt to answer them. We will also hold ourselves accountable because we've got some stuff today. We'll talk a little fantasy football about this Titans offense. We got some quarterback battles in the NFL.
Revisiting our takes on fantasy football from May 31st.
Yes, there you have it. So now that we've seen some camp, and obviously there was some fantasy news, a kerfuffle with your boy, of course, during the course of this week. So we'll touch on some of that stuff. Because we know that
he directly that kerfuffle with where basically the irresponsible reporting by Mike Herndon of paulkarski.com
noted Treylon Burks hater.
Noted Treylon Burks hater has tanked Treylon Burks' fantasy value since May, and that has a direct correlation to the Mike Herndon effect.
Which I think is wonderful because then I can get him at a steal during the draft process when we go to our draft coming up here in a little while. So also we're going to have a fantasy league for you guys as well. So stay tuned on that. I know a few people have already asked. They would like to be in the league. There's a few of you that have been grandfathered in, so we'll do that process as well. But get involved in the comments there. And, of course, we'll preview the game coming up this evening. For those of you listening after the game.
Actual football game.
Oh, thank the good Lord, baby Jesus. If you're listening to this after the game,
what's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you? One, it's certainly possible. We're going to hold ourselves accountable and try to predict the names of the players we'll be talking about on Monday's show when this rolls around and we come back on live. Now, before we do any of that, of course, so we're going to have a fun show today. Quarterback battles in the SEC and in the NFL. Lots of fun. Special thanks, of course, to one of our title sponsors, the Kingston Group. That's buildkg.com. If you have any questions about your house, any renovation issues, any concerns at all, if you're buying a new home, make sure you talk to the Kingston Group.
Need a new kitchen? Do you need a new office? Call the Kingston Group.
Buildkg.com is the website. Nashville's locally owned custom home and remodeling firm. I have said that a few times. But if you'll notice, there is something new on the set today, and it is definitely Zach's t-shirt. But look at this beautiful piece of art back here. Weiss Liquors, also our title sponsor, of course, so make sure you check out Weiss Liquors, the closest liquor store to the Nissan Stadium, to the Titan Stadium. You can go to Uber Eats, order booze right off of Uber Eats, search Weiss Liquors. It will come right to your house in approximately 20 minutes. I suppose you could order it to your office. If you want to try that, go for it, but really just to the house. What's the line?
You can drink. Let them drive so you can drink.
You almost got it.
I almost got it. But you can drink so they can drive.
And if you drive by and you pop in, just tell them 440 sent you. Just say 440 at the cashier register there, and they'll give you 10% off. So tax-free booze over at Weiss Liquor. And this beautiful, cool new painting right here behind me on the set. If you're watching on the YouTubes, which of course you should, and as an old man, I call it the YouTubes.
And I will say that due to supply chain issues, not with Weiss Liquors, but with Skinny Girl Margaritas, I was sorely disappointed that they do not carry Skinny Girl Margaritas. There's a Skinny Girl Margaritas shortage.
That sounds like an epidemic.
It isn't. It is very concerning, and I hope that everything gets fixed soon.
Biden, what are you doing? Solve the problem.
Thanks, Obama.
Solve the problem of the Skinny Girl Margarita shortage. Supply chain issue. Where does that get imported from? Is that an imported product there?
I don't know. I'll have to research.
Yeah, do some reporting on that there. So again, quarterback battles in the SEC, quarterback battles in NFL football. We'll do some fantasy talk about this particular team, but of course we've got to talk about the Titans game against the Ravens.
Chicago, Illinois. So Austin Huff.
You don't say the S at
Austin
the end.
Huff, bring me Skinny Girl Margarita. Send me some Skinny Girl Margarita.
Austin Huff, send him some Skinny Girl Margarita from Illinois.
Yeah, there's a brain fart.
It's fine.
And we're at Cast Collective Studio.
We are.
And what about that they have? I walked in some more new stuff because they had a new
shit everywhere.
A new background. They're hiring a lot of employees, but many people
are talking about it.
This is not just a podcast studio. Did you know that they do videography and photography?
Well, we are technically on a camera.
Yes.
Right now.
But I said not just studio stuff. They do
yes.
videography and photography. Please listen to my words because we're doing a show for the next 45 minutes together.
Well, my wife will tell you I'm a bad listener. It's fine. No,
listening.
I need to work on it. It's thing I'm dealing with, in my therapy sessions. So Cast Collective does a private event space, of course, if you want to have a little private event. If you need to do some videography, some audio production value, Aaron and Sean and the team here at Cast Collective, they're great. So check them out.
See how good this looks?
Look at this.
Your event could look this good.
Look at this. It's amazing. It's spectacular. And that Weiss sign is just, I love that thing. All right. Stoney Keeley, a painting of one of the most iconic signs in Nashville history, A++ decor. That's right, Stoney. Only A++ content here on a football show. Okay. So we're going to hold ourselves accountable by giving you names at the end of this conversation that we are predicting will be the names that we are talking about on Monday. You don't know my names. I don't know your names. We're going to get to them. But
unless you just looked at my sheet.
I did. I would never do that to you.
Don't cheat.
But Malik Willis is not allowed to be included in that list.
That's true.
Malik Willis
Players
is not invited.
Besides, the obvious ones like, Traylon Burks or Malik Willis or Chika Okonkwo or Kyle Phillips. Like, yeah, we know that you're excited for those. Anybody with half a brain is excited for those. Don't put out polls on those guys because those guys, that's another shot at Mike Miracles. I'm going to get in a bunch of them today.
Damn.
Don't worry about those guys. Let's get some refreshing new players to talk about.
Yes, which you and I are going to have. We're going to make predictions on the players we're going to talk about.
First, let's talk about Willis.
But first, let's talk about Willis because, frankly, I'm not wearing. I don't know. You can't tell because it's under the table, but I don't have pants on right now because there's a football game. Woo! There's a football game, and so the pants don't fit right now. Zach, that's too much information for everybody in the office. Is around the corner here at the Gas Collective studio. Let's talk about Willis because this is the thing that people want to see. It's the thing you want to see. I want to see it as well. How do you define success in preseason game number 1 for Malik Willis?
I think it's learning what you see him do in adjustment wise in the game, right? So basically, I look at it from this viewpoint. There's going to be a bunch of rookies playing, a bunch of people that we haven't seen play in a while. Maybe Caleb Farley, Rashad Weaver fall in that category for you. Dylan Radins does too. But there's going to be a lot of people that we have never seen play before. So even if the Titans lose, what is successful for these players, right? Because some people define it as win-loss records. If we talked about it on a Football and Other F Words, which can be available anywhere that podcasts are sold on this sold.
We're selling podcasts.
We're selling podcasts. Listen,
it's a loose episode today.
It is.
Football's here, baby.
Football's here. I'm just everywhere right now. But we talked about it saying that, okay, if he threw a couple interceptions, that's okay because he can learn from it, right? And the only way you learn from it is if you make in-game adjustments. Now, word on the street is that Ryan Tannehill's not there.
Shocked by that.
Well, I think...
Is he a leader? Is he a mentor?
I think it's interesting that the Titans chose not to bring along the vets and or allowed it if he requested it, just because he could be on the sidelines. I think Mark Sanchez was on the Colin Cowherd. Was on the Colin Cowherd show. I don't care about talking about. It was an actual the one clip I will ever say was good on Colin Cowherd.
All right.
Was this clip when he was talking about how great it was to have Mark Brunell kind of call the plays, or he actually called the plays while Mark Brunell was on the field. So obviously Logan Woodside can teach. We've seen reports of him teaching on the sidelines, but I think it would have been nice if the Titans would have brought along at least Ryan Tannehill. Is it a big deal? No, it would just been a cherry on top. But it's all about the in-game adjustments for me. If he goes out there and he makes a mistake on one play and it causes an interception, I want to see that play ran again in this game and see him execute it.
I like that a lot. I think to me, like the baseline of this, and this goes for all these guys, especially the ones that we know are starters, of the very few that might actually get reps. I think Caleb Farley is one of them, of course.
Yeah.
At the right tackle position, we'll talk about. But like the guys that, like, the key is get reps, put up some tape, hopefully good tape, but put up some tape, and then get out of the game healthy. Like that's really the number one goal, is to get reps, put together your tape, and then get out of there. But I'm with you with Willis, and I think Pat O'Hara said this, you and I have talked about this, like he's good off rhythm. He knows how to run around and make plays. I want to see the throws. Like you just said, make the throws, even if they're bad, so that we can learn from them. There's going to be a wow moment where he runs around and does something special, and we're all going to go, ooh, it's going to be great. And we'll all be very aroused by it. But I think what matters is how many times is he throwing in rhythm? How many times does the ball go where it's supposed to go, as far as which decision he made to throw to which player? And then we can learn after that. But I want to see him make the throws. And I think there's going to be a couple passes knocked down. This will be my prediction for Willis. He's going to have one or two spectacular running plays where the people are screaming, get down, get out of bounds, get down. There's going to be one or two where it gets knocked down. He's going to have a couple of bad throws. And then there's going to be a couple of throws where you just go, that's it.
Right.
That's it right there. That's the throw that he just made from the right hash on an out route across the field to the opposite hash. And it got there on a dime. And I think it's going to be a mixed bag. Don't overreact.
Well, it's kind of like when you do the orange and white game for UT fans. You know, when you have the redshirt freshman come in and play a couple of snaps in that game, it's like it's about the future, right? the term that I've seen Bleacher Report use, but now also Jeremy Fowler of ESPN use is red shirt year. He's a red shirt quarterback. So you got to approach it as he's a freshman. He's a freshman.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think what you can tell is he's got a good head on his shoulders. So any mistake that he has, he'll be able to, just shake it off. And the Titans are happy with his progression. Not happy enough to ditch Logan Woodside and go no security net, underneath them. But I think when you, at the end of the day, that's what you're looking for at this game, is just looking for the plays that you knew Malik could make. Let's look at the plays that we knew that Malik couldn't make coming into the draft process and see what he does with those plays.
And honestly, to that exact point, like, I don't know if we're going to learn how much progress he's made tonight or on Thursday night. I think by preseason game 3 is when you're going to see, like, we're going to know, oh, he hasn't corrected that mistake. Oh, he has corrected that mistake. So I don't think anyone should overreact to anything they see tonight, good or bad. It's almost about the tape compared to the next tape and the next tape and the next tape.
Well, everybody's going to overreact to everything.
It's 2022 and there's Twitter. I got it. Sophie, by the way, says she's watching us live from California. Keep up the good work.
All right.
On Monday, we learned we were international. We are clearly coast to coast now.
Yep.
There's no question about that on a football show.
Hemisphere to hemisphere, possibly.
That's sure. I'm a big equator guy.
Yeah.
Kevin says if there were multiple away games, it'd be one thing, but the next two games are at home, so it's a cool benefit to stay home all the way through. That's a valid point, to just have them never have to travel.
Yeah.
For like the first 3.5 weeks of the preseason. It's not a bad idea.
Then you got the home game to the home opener.
Yeah. So
week 1.
All right. So anything else on Willis? Are we good on Willis?
I think so.
Okay. Because again,
if you want more Willis talk, we talked a little bit more in depth on some of the other things that you should set your expectations for on Football and Other Efforts.
So are we going to learn anything about any position battles on the starting lineup for the Tennessee Titans at all?
I don't think about, as far as, okay, if Dylan Radins gets to start today, does that mean that they view him as a starting right tackle? No. But I think you will get answers on who's ahead in the competition, who looks the best. And that same goes for Jamarco Jones, who's apparently put together some good practices, according to Jim White at TennesseeTitans.com. But then again, nobody's watching. So maybe when everybody's watching night, he goes back down and sucks. So we'll see. We'll see what he is.
So you think we'll get an actual view of some of the left guard competition, some of the right tackle competition. But other than that, I think the vast majority of the position battles that we are going to see in game 1 and probably game 2 to some degree our wide receiver 5, 6, and 7, our cornerback 4, 5, and 6, our defensive lineman 5, 6, and 7.
The back end of this roster and the cornerbacks are going to get a lot of work. No Roger McCreary today. Assume no Christian Fulton.
I would assume, yeah.
And I would assume no Elijah Molden. So we know it's Caleb Farley, Shakur Brown, Trace Willing.
Do you want to talk corner? Do you want to talk DBs then?
We can talk about DBs
because I think DBs is one of the great areas to focus on, because it's Shakur Brown, it's Greg Maben. It is I like the Swilling kid a lot. It is all those guys that are going to be battling and going to get a lot of reps. I am curious about how much you want to see Caleb Farley. I know we all are desperate to see him. I'm good with knocking the rust off.
I think the Titans are having him travel for a reason, not for one drive or 2 drives.
At what point?
I think he's a full half player.
What series does Zach sit up in his chair and say, get him out of the game? He's healthy. He's done the reps. Get him out. What's the how many possessions
against the Ravens?
How many possessions?
I would say I would need to see 5 possessions, which should amount to maybe a half in preseason football.
So if he's in the third quarter, you're screaming at the television.
Yeah, I don't want him in there in the third quarter.
I would go probably more like 3 to 4 possessions. So
not too far,
not too far off. But it also depends. Like if you get 12 plays, and a lot of reps, then maybe you're good. And the coach, that's the other thing. Coaches do that. Like if all of a sudden Radins is on the field for a 12-play drive and they're running the football right every single play, and it's probably
that also factors into it how long the drives are.
Probably Julius Chestnut going off right tackle there. Here's the other thing, and I'll give them the Justins credit for this on the Music City Audible. Check out the podcast everywhere they're sold, which is a new T-shirt for us. I think we should have.
Yep.
I don't want to see, and this kind of goes for all players. I don't want to see one drive on, one drive off, one drive on, one drive off.
Kind of like what they did with Woodside and Barkley last year. I think that's counterintuitive to get anybody getting into a rhythm.
Yes, give if MPF starts, give him a quarter.
Yeah.
If it's Radin that starts, give him a quarter, and then give the other guy the next quarter. Like whatever you're doing, just give it some time. If it's going to be 4 total series, Give 1 2 and give the other one 2. Don't be going back and forth. Again,
one of my players that I think we'll be talking about on Monday plays at this position. So I think we should just go ahead and just weave them in.
Just want to weave them in? All right, your first guy
is in this cornerback group
that you are guaranteeing we will speak about
as
a
star player,
a noteworthy performance.
Yeah. Shakur Brown.
Okay, I like it.
I think he's going to have the ample opportunity. He's been making at least one play that has everybody talking about every day at practice.
True.
He's going to have a lot of opportunity to make some plays against lower level talent or talent probably near his level.
Okay.
So I think he'll probably walk away. I may even make the bold prediction. I think he walks away with an interception.
Oh, I like that. I do love this cornerback battle. Like this is, Chris Jackson, I expect. I'm assuming he's going to get plenty of reps, but
yeah,
you look at the defensive backs in general, because you also have a rookie in Theo Jackson. You've got AJ Moore, who's a new player to the team. You've got both, Chris Jackson, Maben, Shakur Brown, like all these guys, and they're kind of all battling for like 2 spots, especially at corner, with knowing that the starters are going to not,
right.
Byard, Hooker, and Fulton should not be playing. Molden's out, McCreary's out. There's space to play. So I do think we're going to see a lot of corner. The other position that we're going to see a lot of is wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
And we know the top 4 are pretty set. I think the top 4 are pretty clear. And
I think top 5 is.
And that includes Burks and Phillips. And I would agree with that.
Who Burks is what, wide receiver 6 according to reports?
He's going to have a nice day today. If he plays well on Thursday, Treylon Burks might crack the top 6. I think but here's the question about Burks and Phillips. Honestly, they are clearly in the top 4 right now, in our opinion. How much do you want to give them? How much lather? They need to experience NFL football, but how much at this stage is a big question for me.
Yeah. We got a question about how do we know McCreary is out? That is from reading the tea leaves.
Yes.
Now, Buck may have reported it on his show. He told me that he didn't think he was there, but I didn't get to listen to his show today. And then Jim White also alluded to the fact in his article. Now,
Jim White,
McCreary has missed a few practices, according to reports. So there's a good chance he's not there. He may be there, not dressed out, and may not play, but he may be there on the sidelines. But I don't think they're going to risk playing him in a preseason game 1 if he was on stationary bikes just a few days ago.
I feel like this is a pretty fair assumption. If you don't know if a player has traveled with the team and reporting that one way or the other, no matter who you are, there's a pretty good chance that it's not worth the risk.
Yeah.
So and again, McCreary being as mature and as evolved and as polished as a player as he is, again, this is the same thing with Molden. I'm not worried about Molden missing this time because I think he's already,
and he still could be there. He just may not play. That's right. I think he may still be there on the sidelines to learn, but he may not play.
No, I think the Maben, Brown, Chris Jackson, that group, and then again Farley number 1. I want to see, but I don't want.
Yeah.
Again, 3 to 4 series at the most.
So wide receiver. Sorry, you got us off track.
Yeah, it's all good. The how many series do you want from Treylon Burks? How many do you want from Kyle Phillips?
I actually want to see more Burks and less of Phillips, if that makes sense, because I think Phillips is kind of like McCreary. You kind of know what you got. I mean, reports coming out of camp that basically we haven't quite figured out a way to cover him yet. Now, that's the Tennessee Titans defense. Maybe the Ravens defense figured it out with no tape. But I think that in the end, I think if Treylon Burks was going to play 4 series, I think Kyle Phillips maybe plays 2.
I think that's fair. I think that's probably more than.
I think they want to see Mason Kinsey, and I think they want to see these other guys a little bit more.
I think you're over. I think it's like two series for both, and that's it.
I don't think he'll play 4.
Okay,
I was just using that as an example of division, and
I would say they're both out there for the first 2 series with Willis, and then they're out.
I think it also depends on how the series goes, and I think that should be a caveat for everything. If it's run, and Treylon Burks is only in there for really 1 play, then they're not going to see enough. I think they're going to want to at least get I think they want to target Treylon Burks 3 or 4 times in this game.
I would go.
So I would almost go targets more so. How much long do they play? So Kyle Phillips probably gets like 2 targets, but I think 3 or 4 for Treylon when Malik Willis is in. I don't know if Logan Woodside can target anybody besides Jeff Swain.
Poor Logan Woodside. All right. So here's what I would like to see and what I hope to see. And if we come in on Monday, I hope we're talking about a wide receiver set of Des Fitzpatrick, Racey McMath, Mason Kinsey, and Josh Malone with some Reggie Roberson mixed in. I want to see those 5 guys targeted as many times as possible in as many different situations as possible, in as many different routes as possible with both quarterbacks. I want to see those 5 guys throwing the football all game long.
Well, Racey McMath, you will be talking about that on Friday or on Monday.
Number 2?
Number 2 is Racey McMath is going to be the star. I think that Malik Willis, Reggie Roberson, and Racey McMath are going to connect on multiple deep passes.
Big deep shots.
I think they're going to throw in a lot of deep shots while it's preseason game 1, and why not? And I think they're going to want to get Racey McMath comfortable in a game, throwing the deep shot. And I think the other one's going to be Reggie Roberson, but that's not my guy we're talking about.
I gotcha. So I screwed up. Again, hold ourselves accountable here. I screwed up because I didn't work my name in that I'm guaranteeing. And that is, I saw you peeking just now. Theo Jackson is a name that we were talking about on Monday. We are talking about Theo Jackson as the guy who flashed on film. You know that phrase, he flashes on film. They're going to play him all over the field. I think he plays for a bunch of series. I think they're getting him used to a lot of different positions, going up with a lot of different matchup, like tight ends in the slot versus high point safety versus man-to-man coverage and zone cover. Like, I think they're going to use him a lot, and I think we're going to go, that Theo Jackson dude can play ball.
Yeah, like kind of like Elijah Molden.
I think he's very much like Molden. He's a little bit more athletic and a little bit more in
Molden
space.
Put together one of the best preseasons I've ever seen a Titans player put together.
I think they are very similar in skill set. They're slightly different players, but I think they're similar in what they want them to do on this defense. Theo Jackson is a guy I'm guaranteeing that we are talking about.
Okay, give me 2 more. Your other 2 names. We'll end it on those 2 names.
Well, we got so many more. What about Ryan Stonehouse? Are we going to talk about him? Are we going to talk about Chig Okonkwo? Are we going to talk about?
Of course, we already talked about Chig.
All right, so let's do front 7 real fast, and then we'll wrap it up because that's where my guys are. I think DeMarcus Walker, Jaden Peavy, Murch, Lawler, Strong, Haskell Garrett. There's a lot of positional battles at the back end of the defensive line we're going to see, and I think Jaden Peavy is the guy we're talking about.
That's my last guy.
Okay, so we're in agreement?
Yeah, we're in agreement on one.
Jaden Peavy is the guy, 72, that when we come in here on Monday, we're talking about the debate for the end of the defensive line group, and everyone's going to go, that Jaden Peavy dude, we noticed him.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many early reps he gets.
He's just so big, it's hard to miss a guy like that.
He's very active.
Yeah.
He's very active. Donnie says, do y'all think Malik will get the full second half? I don't think it's a first half, second half. We talked about this
on Football and Other
either F words or the football show. I'm not sure, but check out both of them. I want to see a quarter and a quarter and then a quarter and a quarter, and I'd like to see them alternate with some ability to get rhythm, but then alternate.
Does Woodside start the game, or does Willis start the game?
What would you do?
I think I would start Willis.
I would throw Willis out there.
Let's get spicy. I think I would throw Willis out there.
You know what they'll probably do is they'll do Woodside for one series just to be like, we're playing it safe.
Yeah,
and then Willis will be out there for 4 or 5 straight series. So this goes to Jacob, his comment in the section there. My other guy, Chance Campbell. Chance Campbell is the guy we're going to be talking about because, frankly, this middle linebacker position gets worse and worse every day. Dylan Cole is out. Monty Rice is not playing. You know that Cunningham and Long aren't going to play. This is going to – you could see like 60 snaps from Chance Campbell. It may be bad, but I think you're going to see a ton of reps from him and maybe, I guess, Jack Gibbons or Joe Jones. I don't know.
I think you will, but I also want to say that last year when they kind of had murky linebacker depth, that they were pulling in safeties in the box. I think it was Jamal Carter was playing a lot in the box, and he had a pretty good preseason. So I wonder, with them signing 2 safeties this week, not only is it for just bodies to have ready to play the game, but I wonder if those 2 guys are going to fill in a little bit at linebacker as well.
Yeah, I agree. So Chance Campbell, Jaden Peavy, and Theo Jackson, 3 young players, 3 first-year players, all on defense are the 3 guys that I'm claiming. If I was going to put a main name into this conversation, Chig Okonkwo is the guy we're going to talk about who is already sort of established himself.
He should get the snaps, right? Have the snaps there to make some plays. Briley Moore, I guess, would be one of those guys that he actually was showing up before he got injured last offseason. But I think Chig has the path to snaps. And I think that's really key when you're talking about preseason is how many tight ends do they have available to play and how many snaps are people going to get?
Quickly, everybody remember Mekhi Sargent from last year?
Yes.
Just want to remind everybody of that name.
Julius Chestnut is this year's Mekhi Sargent.
And I do want to see something from Haskins. I do think Hassan Haskins will get some reps early in the game. I know you poo-poo Jordan Wilkins, but they like him a little bit more than some of these other guys.
But he has poo-pooed himself, evident by
like
him being where he's at in his career.
Sounds like a personal problem. All right, are we done with the game?
We are.
So guaranteed names: Shakur Brown, Racy McMath, and Jaden Peavy, Theo Jackson, Chance Campbell. Hold us accountable if you're listening, if you're watching. We will come in on Monday and tell you how badass we were or how dead wrong.
I will tell you tonight.
Dead wrong. You'll be on.
I'll be on Twitter taking my parade.
At F-Words Pod, taking victory laps.
Yes.
Every single day in the sewers. All right, let's go to fantasy real quick here. We'll talk a little fantasy football. About this team after a couple of weeks of camp, seeing the depth chart. What do we think about where this team?
Because it stems from May 31st. I actually wrote down what I said. I went back and listened to the show and wrote down what I said, and I kind of want to see where everything landed since then.
Oh,
so it'll be interesting to see.
Okay,
want to start off with Ryan Tannehill?
Let's start with Ryan Tannehill because I was looking at a lot of different rankings of his, and this is the beauty of fantasy football. Like you consume all the rankings, and then you have to make your own choice. Your own board is critical to make your own big board. When it comes to your fantasy rankings. And I've seen Ryan Tannehill anywhere from 20 to 24 in these rankings. And while I am not going to stand here and say that he's going to be a fantasy starter, I think that ranking is pretty stupid.
Well, he's been at least a quarterback 12 in every season he's played with the Tennessee Titans, including when he only played half the season in 2019. And right now, I said back then he was in the 14th round and he was quarterback 22. When we talked to him May 31st, now he is in the 15th round. It's quarterback 24. And I said that he's easily going to finish a quarterback 12 this year. I don't care what anybody thinks. I think he will get the quarterback 12 because his interceptions are going to be less.
So that's a starting fantasy quarterback.
He is a starting fantasy quarterback.
I disagree with that.
I think that's ridiculous. Look what he did last year, and he was a starting fantasy quarterback.
I hear you.
So if you think he's going to be better this year,
other players change.
Yeah, but you're talking about because you said beforehand you would draft Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones,
definitely not Mac Jones.
Sorry, Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson possibly over Ryan Tannehill without taking out Watson's stuff because you consider Watson undraftable based on his moral stuff.
So I mean that's a personal choice.
Yeah.
If you're in it to win it, and very cynically, and you think he's going to play 12 games, then you draft, especially in a keeper league, you draft Watson. But so here's quarterback 10, 11, and 12, according to just ESPN's rank. I'm just using ESPN just for the sake of it. Joe Burrow, Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford. He is not going to put up... Now, Matthew Stafford's arm issues aside, let's say he's healthy. He is not going to score more fantasy points than those three guys. Now, is 24... 24 is absurd. 24 is stupid. I would have him in the... Like, Derek Carr, to me, if you're looking for a steal of a quarterback, Derek Carr is ranked 14th in rankings right now. I would take Derek Carr as a starting. I think that good dude's going to throw the ball everywhere and going to put up huge numbers with a bunch of dudes. I would take Derek Carr before Tannehill 10 times out of 10. So I'm
based on the value that I kind of agree with that. I don't know what round quarterback 14 puts him in, but in my mind, I'm thinking if I can wait all the way to the 15th round to get a quarterback like Ryan Tannehill, then what I'm looking at is how good is my team going to be at the skill position players because I waited to get Ryan Tannehill. And is there enough? Does Matt Stafford, what you get with Matt Stafford, make up for what you get with the rest of your roster?
So here's the strategy I would deploy. If I can get Derek Carr at QB 14, which to me is stupid value, I'm coming back the very next round and taking Ryan Tannehill. Does that make sense? Like if you're waiting to 14th round to draft your quarterback and you can go Derek Carr and then Ryan Tannehill back to back. So you've got one of the worst quote unquote starters, but maybe the best.
What's his actual ADP, Derek Carr?
I don't have that. I don't have that. Actually, you know what? Maybe I do. No ADP here. No ADP. But he's got him. ESPN has him behind Carson Wentz. And I can't do that. It's just
I can.
It's ridiculous.
It's kind of ridiculous that the only two quarterbacks that are being drafted that are worse than Ryan Tannehill are Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff. Which Baker Mayfield is being done higher than Jared Goff, which I think is kind of crazy because I think Jared Goff was having a good year last year in comparison to what you want for fantasy. So if you're looking at Derek Carr, he's being drafted in the 9th round. So you can wait 6 rounds technically based on ADP to get Ryan Tannehill.
So then that's where I would do. I would wait on not rounds 8, 9, and 10 to get my starter, and it would be in that, Russell Wilson, Matt Stafford, Derek Carr, Trey Lance, Kirk Cousins category, and then I'd come back and get Tannehill even later, 5, 6 rounds later. and I think that would be one of my better quarterbacks. The point is 24th best quarterback in the NFL is statistically insane.
It's ridiculous. That just goes to show that if you're in a Titans heavy fantasy group, you don't get these advantages. So you got to be in a group that is spread out far and wide with different allegiances and stuff because people do not pay attention to the Tennessee Titans. We know that, right? Recent history even shows that the people that cover the team don't even know where Treylon Burks is. And then and then the national guys will run with it. So in my mind,
he's running with the threes.
Yeah. So in my mind, if you're playing with Tennessee Titans centric Nashville based league, you're not going to get him in the 15th round,
which I think you're fine with.
Yeah,
there's plenty of other good quarterbacks that I think are going to put up better numbers. So like I think that's fine. Which speaks to the one of the top rules of fantasy football, which is know your competition.
Right.
Know who their favorite teams are and know what players they love. I'm in a league with like my dad and brother and cousin who are all Packers fans. So like I know that they're all going to overdraft Aaron Jones and Aaron Rodgers.
Here's the thing, and this has been a hot topic on the radio, and why I think Ryan Tannehill will be quarterback, at least a starting fantasy quarterback, is because everything inside the building points to technically a more aggressive, a more assertive Ryan Tannehill.
And offense, frankly.
And the offense is better around him when he finished quarterback 12 last year.
I would put a bottle of whiskey on that he does not finish as QB 12 or better,
barring injury.
Yeah. Injury makes it a moot point. All right, Henry versus Taylor. What running back is Derrick Henry on your list? I still think he
went from running back 2 back in May 31st to running back 3. So Christian McCaffrey, everybody's starting to buy into the Christian McCaffrey hype, and I'm to the point. No, I'm to the point, and I said this on May 31st, that I am not drafting Christian McCaffrey. I'm going to let someone else do it. I will take the risk that Christian McCaffrey gets injured, and then I'd take the risk of him exploding on someone else's team and having the high risk of him getting injured on my team.
Yeah, you can't miss on your top picks.
No, so to me, Derrick Henry is still running back 2. I think Jonathan Taylor in half-point PPR and regular point PPR is the guys, the consensus number 1. I do worry about Nyheim Hines being a factor because even if he's lined up in the backfield and Nyheim Hines is
a lot of touches,
we've seen that Nyheim Hines, they want to get him involved. Go back and look at the Phillip Rivers season, Jonathan Taylor's freshman year. They were taking Jonathan Taylor off all the time, and they did that in games last year too. They took him off and put Nyheim Hines in for a long time. So reports are they want to get back to more Nyheim Hines. How much does that really matter? Probably not enough.
Do you think that some of that happens with Derrick Henry this year?
No. So I think that based on reports coming out of it and what we've seen, there's a reason he's not practicing in full and taking all these hits and taking all these reps, and he's kind of chilling in the offseason because I think they are going to basically run him like they normally do this year. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
That was a lot of usage in the first half of last year.
I think that with the team being a little bit better around him as well, as far as I think the run blocking is going to be a little bit better this year.
I think the run blocking is fine. It is the thing that like every time we ever have any conversation about anything, it all comes back to like, well, but how does the right tackle and the left guard going to be?
I'm looking at
I love Derrick. I'll take Derrick Henry as RB2, and I'm fine with that.
I think that he looks healthy. He's going to have something to prove too, because he heard probably all the Jonathan Taylor MVP talk, and he got comeback player of the year. Okay. He looks a lot better. The thing is, Tony Dews even came out and said, if you take 15 reps off of him on August 4th, why not? So he's not going to play the entire preseason. So there's more reps coming off of him. So to me, Derrick Henry is your running back 2, and I feel safe taking him over guys like Nick Chubb. I feel safe taking him over Christian McCaffrey, these other named running backs, when really you should be asking yourself, do I take Derrick Henry or Austin Eckler? Do I take Derrick Henry or Najee Harris?
I would take. Oh God, I do.
See, I mean, but Austin Eckler is a force in the passing game.
Oh, I love Najee Harris.
So that's where you kind of look at it. It should be between those guys, not between Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb, not between Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey.
So to me, McCaffrey, Chubb down a peg because of injury. I know this is going to sound hypocritical because Derrick Henry got injured last year. I get that, but I think he's more injury proof over the course of his career than those two guys. Harris, I'm knocking down behind Henry because of the quarterback situation in the offense, even though we know that they feature him. Eckler's an interesting one. I could see Eckler
It's
with
a
that
tough
offense, with
decision
that
if you're
quarterback,
right there at that second spot, because then you got that second spot. You can go zero running back strategy because you have guys like Cam Akers, which is continuously being disrespected.
DeAndre Swifts of the world.
DeAndre Swift. I'm not a big DeAndre Swift.
Okay, I'm just saying he's going to be a second or third round pick.
There's guys you can get later, and you can go Devontae Adams, you can go Cooper Kupp, you can go those other receivers, Stephon Diggs.
How do you feel? This is an interesting situation because this is a true story. My two favorite teams in the NFL are the Packers and the Titans. Just in general, my goal every year as a football fan is to see them play in the Super Bowl. That's my goal. I had Devontae Adams and AJ Brown last year, my fantasy team. They have both been removed from my two favorite teams. How do we feel about hate drafting someone? So then in case this is my theory, in case he does go off, Adams will. In case AJ Brown does go off, you hate that it happens. You hate to see it because you don't care about him anymore and he's on the Eagles. But don't you want to hedge your bets and gain something from him going off if you got him on your fantasy team?
I'm all for that. I used to do that with Colts players like Peyton Manning. I hate Peyton Manning, but hey, if he's going to come in and if he's going to come in and beat the Titans, I'm at least getting 3 touchdowns out of it.
I've drafted Chase Utley so many years in fantasy baseball because I fucking hate the guy.
Yeah,
I just hate the guy. He's a terrible human being. Go Mets, first place, baby.
All
right. So right now, according to ESPN, Treylon Burks, 48th wide receiver, and Robert Woods, 46th wide receiver in keeper leagues. Treylon Burks is way undervalued.
So in half point PPR from Fantasy Football Calculator, which is constantly updating all the time. So I use fantasyfootballcalculator.com.
Shout out.
So Burks went from wide receiver 33 on May 31st, being picked around the 8th round, to wide receiver 55, now being picked in the 12th.
What?
And that's all because of Mike. I am determined to believe it because that is wild. I looked at that. I cannot believe he's being drafted in the 12th round. Meanwhile, Robert Woods was wide receiver 41, so just a few spots below what Burks was. And we talked about it on the show. I said that I think Woods is the better value. If I'm taking someone in the 8th round out of those two guys right now, I'm taking Robert Woods.
So it's corrected itself. So
now Woods is in the 8th round, and I'm looking at it, and even Phil Yates of ESPN Fantasy, he even says that Robert Woods may be the most disrespected player in the fantasy draft because, to me, camp reports are coming out about essentially that he and Austin Hooper safety valves, when you kind of look at it, Robert Woods is just a dependable guy. He should be ready. He's obviously not going to play, but he should be ready for all intents and purposes. And I think
him not having a knee brace has got to be part of the moving up the list, right?
I think that people are just overreacting to Treylon Burks in general. And because when you look at it, he's still the second in Dynasty, which we were going to talk about a little bit later. But in Dynasty, he's wide receiver 2.
So my main league
is the 3rd overall pick being taken right now.
My main league is a keeper league, and you can only keep 36 players total in the league. So each team keeps 3 players. So you're always looking for value. Like this year, for example, I've got Deebo Samuel in the 10th round. I'm keeping him.
Right.
I've got Jalen Waddle in the 13th round. I'm going to keep him. I've got Justin Herbert in the 20th round. I'm going to keep him. So those are my 3 keepers in my deep keeper league, where all these running backs, Najee Harris was a 1st round pick last year, that kind of thing. So it's not dynasty, but I will be taking Treylon Burks in our keeper league, and it'll probably be, and again, everybody's league is different, so it's hard, but it's probably in that 7-8 range, somewhere in there, round 7 or 8. I would take him ahead of Woods.
See, I would in a keeper league, I think, but I would still try to, if I'm looking at Woods and Burks on the board, and I think that I could still get Burks later on down in the 12th range, then I'm going to stick with Woods in the 8th and have Treylon Burks be kind of like the either trade fodder or be the guy that comes in for Woods later on down the road.
At wide receiver 34, in theory, that puts him as a starting top 3 receiver in a 12-team league, obviously.
Which makes sense.
I think that's about right. I think I don't want to depress the numbers a little bit with Robert Woods because I love the player. I think he's a better football player than he is a fantasy player. I think the things he brings to the Titans team, some of which don't count in fantasy, the blocking and the leadership and the culture and all that other stuff.
Well,
so that's why
I look at it this way. The Titans are one of the best of the last 3 years of red zone offense. And when you're getting in the red zone and at a high rate that they are, they now have players like Hooper and Woods and Burks and Nick Westbrook-Ikine and Kyle Phillips. Now, that's a lot of mouths to feed.
My guy Chig.
That's a lot of mouths to feed. But I think that Hooper and Woods are going to be the main benefactors of red zone offense passing. So when you have that added in, I can see that maybe he's never going to get you a 100-yard gain, but he could get you a 60-yard, 1 touchdown, 60-yard, 2 touchdown performance almost every week.
I think
maybe not a touchdown every week. But
I think the 4 receptions, 60 yards, 1 touchdown every other week is fair.
That gets you that gets you the value.
Yes.
You're getting the value out of Robert Woods that you need when you're drafting the 3rd wide receiver to start on your team.
Man, that
maybe even at that point your 4th or 5th wide receiver.
I do think there's an interesting discussion about how do they distribute the football in the red zone, because they do get there quite often.
Yep.
Hooper, I think, is the number one difference from last year's team to this year's team.
That's where I worry about Derrick Henry's production coming. Is
you think it comes from Henry though?
No, I think that what's going to happen is that they're probably going to use more of a passing attack in the red zone and have less Henry, unless they're really at the goal line.
That's what I mean. Like instead of 18 touchdowns, where those extra 4 or 5 go, you're saying they're going to Hooper.
Yeah, maybe going to Hooper, maybe going to because
I think it's Chig. I think it's Chig.
I think. Listen, Chig's going undrafted in both. This is something I want to talk about. But Hooper, by the way, is still a tight end. Went from tight end 25 to tight end 26, so he's actually dropped. He's in the 14th round. If you're in mandatory tight end, wait until the 14th round and draft Austin Hooper. Do not draft a tight end before that.
100%. Unless you are one of those guys that loves having like the guy, and you go in like the 3rd or 4th round or 5th round,
Travis Kelce or something.
The guy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I agree. And I honestly, in my keeper league, and hope none of my people are watching this, like for the first time I've ever said that, like I will be taking like round 23 and 24 because we have a very deep league. I'm taking Chig on my squad because I like Hooper is not a long-term solution.
No.
Chig is going to be the guy, and so, I think he could score 3 or 4 touchdowns this year.
When you're looking at Dynasty, only 3 tight ends, and we'll switch off to Dynasty now, okay? So
unless you want to talk about Randy Fatbulk.
No, I'm good. So you know, when we're switching Dynasty, 3 Titans players have been drafted it's typically a 3rd round, rookies only draft, okay? So you're talking about Treylon Burks is wide receiver 2 out of all the rookies.
Who's number 1?
I didn't write that down. Willis is actually quarterback 1 being drafted, but he's being drafted in the 3rd round. And then Haskins is running back 12 being drafted in the 3rd round.
Okay.
But Kyle Phillips is not being drafted in Dynasty. Chigo Okonkwo is not being drafted in Dynasty, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. I'm almost tempted to draft Chig in my regular league.
I know. And Phillips.
Yeah, and Phillips. I think that's all crazy.
No, I can't believe that. I want to know who the number 1 receiver is. I don't know if I can't imagine it's either the Ohio State guys. Maybe it's Drake London. I don't know who the
Drake London.
Drake London's number 1. Okay.
It goes Breece Hall is the first overall pick typically, then Drake London, then Treylon Burks, then Kenneth Walker, and then Jameson Williams, Chris Olave, Sky Moore, Christian Watson, which, by the way, if you're drafting Christian Watson over Romeo Doubs, you need to get out.
I do like the Georgia running backs, Zamir White and James Cook. I think both those guys are good.
I am drafting someone out of that list. I can't give away my secrets.
It's so tricky doing fantasy content when you know your people in your league are watching.
But I think that eventually, with the news coming out of the Jameson Williams, Christian Watson is just too high to me, I think Sky Moore is way too high. I think George Pickens should be above both of those guys, and I think Romeo Doubs should be against both those guys.
If Pickens is right and he is focused, George Pickens could be way high on that.
And Wan'Dale Robinson, I think that guy. Listen. I think the Giants are making a huge mistake, and I'm glad the Titans are playing them, the first round or the first week, because they're starting Kadarius Toney and Wan'Dale and kicking Darius Slayton to the curb for whatever reason. I'm all in on that. Yeah, start your little fellas at wide receiver.
I think I like Wan'Dale Robinson a lot. I know we did this show back in the draft.
Yeah,
I love Wan'Dale Robinson. So I will say this: the Giants' talent level is very different than what it was last year.
Yeah.
I was talking to one of the Giants reporters. They very different from last year, which brings us to, you want to transition right now into some quarterback battles. We've got some news in the SEC. We'll get to that in a second. Quarterback battles in the NFL. Here's the one thing that I would say about the Giants. There is a 0% chance they are trading for Jimmy Garoppolo. They do not want him. So number 1, Brian Daboll and Daniel Jones. Like, Daniel Jones has not been given a fair shake at any step of his career.
Well, they're trying to give him a fair shake, but it ain't working.
I also, the camp thing, people can overreact to what they're seeing in camp. I think his skill set, don't overreact to this. His skill set big 6'5", 230-pounder who can run a little bit is very similar to that of Josh Allen's. He is not even close to Josh Allen, so don't at me. What I'm saying is that Daboll is going to use him like that. And in that process, they're going to use those little receivers and get them out in space. Tony is special if he cares about football.
Right.
He's a special player. Robinson is about his size. They have pieces that I think are better than before. They have a system that's better than before. And Jimmy Garoppolo is not better necessarily than Daniel Jones. There's no reason for them to trade an asset that could walk away. They have. I'm just telling you. I have talked
a little iffy right there.
I've talked to somebody. I've talked to somebody that's talked to people. How about that? I talked to somebody who talked to people. He said there's not a single person in the Giants organization that has any interest in Jimmy Garoppolo. Not one person.
I think that's interesting, but I also look at it this way. Is that it's not necessarily about a belief in Daniel Jones as much as it is about a belief in next year's draft class.
That's exactly what it is. I totally agree. It is, we have Daniel Jones for this year. Let's see what we can do with him.
Yeah.
Let's run him into the ground if we want to, because Daboll ran Josh Allen into the ground, does all the time with that offensive scheme that he's got. Let's run Daniel Jones into the ground, see what happens. Let's use all our little weapons. Now they've got Evan Neal, they've got Kayvon Thibodeau. Like, they're a better football team than talent-wise, but they are very inexperienced, and so that's why I think the Titans mutilate them in week 1. But it is I think the Giants finally have a head coach that's decent, and they're going to then solve the quarterback problem either at the end of the year or in the draft.
Either the quarterback problem solves itself this year, or they're going to take it into their own hands and do it next year.
So why spend capital on Jimmy Garoppolo?
Yeah, and I agree. And I think that's the thing about Jimmy Garoppolo in general is that
he's not very good at football. Yeah. I would rather, same thing. What do you think the Seahawks are doing with Drew Lock?
Yeah, see, that's the thing. The thing about this is that I think I think San Francisco got a little too full of themselves about the value that Jimmy Garoppolo brings. And I think that they use the injury to said, well, teams won't trade because of the injury. They want to see how his throwing arm works. I mean, it's the NFL. I think his throwing arm's gonna work out. It's because nobody wants Jimmy G at the price that you're wanting to get rid of him at. And so I think now they're going to be stuck with Jimmy G. I don't know where you trade him at, barring an injury from, let's say,
Trey Lance in camp or something.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a couple of injuries for another team to want to trade for Jimmy G when they can know that he's probably just going to be cut next year, right?
I mean, they can cut him right now, though, too. And what the problem is if they do that, he probably does end up going to a division rival in Seattle, and then it ups the ante in the division. Here's the thing, though. If I'm the Niners and I have already committed to moving on to Trey Lance, and I am Kyle Shanahan, who is like one of the ultimate offensive scheme geniuses with a great defense and a good running game, like, who cares?
Right.
Seattle's not scary with Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm not scared of Seattle with Jimmy Garoppolo.
They're scarier with Jimmy Garoppolo than without him.
Maybe, but like the NFC sucks.
I mean, let's talk about the Seattle quarterback competition,
Garbage.
which is doing a disservice to your fans. One of the best fan bases in the NFL, right? Yeah. And they're really seriously rolling out Geno Smith and Drew Lock week in and week after week and trying to make it a quarterback competition. And Geno Smith had his best practice. He went 11 for 15 and blah, 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 blah. Okay, like, give me a break. It's this Seattle thing. Seattle is like, if I had to choose an NFC team, it would probably be Seattle. I've loved Russell Wilson, but it goes back to Sean Alexander, Matt Hasselbeck, and some
Bama ties.
Some Bama ties. So I love the city of Seattle. But I have no desire to draft anybody in Seattle in fantasy football because I do not want to have to watch a Seattle game.
It's bad.
And unless I'm watching the other team that they're playing against.
I'm with you. I'm okay with that.
And the same thing for Carolina. I'm out on Carolina players. I think that Matt Rule and Ben McAdoo are a match made in heaven.
Co-starters.
Match made in hell. And this I don't have a crystal ball in my pants or blah, blah.
Oh,
but listen, if you don't know that Baker Mayfield is better than Sam Darnold, then you have bigger issues and festering in your facility. And I'm so out on Carolina as an organization right now. I think they should be disbanded. And let's go ahead and disband Seattle too for temporarily
so an infesting and festering both. Yeah. That's a really big personal problem. Yeah. I agree with you in general that if it's not Baker Mayfield, I don't understand what you're watching at camp. I think it's all.
I don't understand what your front office is doing.
I think it's all games.
It's a relatively new front office, right? Isn't this a new
and ownership too? It's all gamesmanship. Now they do have better weapons. At Carolina, they got some nice pieces around the quarterback.
If they can stay healthy.
Seattle maybe doesn't have that, but we'll see. All right. Anything else in the NFL? Actual quarterback battles. I can't believe we actually have quarterback battles. They're just not on good teams.
No, yeah, they're very disinteresting quarterback battles.
That's true. All right. SEC. We had some news this week. Missouri named their starting quarterback. Brady Cook will be the starter.
What do you think about that?
I think it's, first of all, what I love about Brady Cook in general is that basically Eli Drinkowitz, the head coach of Missouri, basically spent the entire offseason saying, if you're a quarterback, come on down and hang out with us.
The Steelers are in the midst of a three-way quarterback battle.
And
Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and Mitch Trubisky.
And apparently,
thank you, Jacob Sane, for throwing that in the chat.
Yes, thank you, Jacob. Pause, SEC. Go back to the Steelers. Apparently very underwhelming, too, according to reports, that it's nobody. Like Mason Rudolph might be the starter right now for Pittsburgh, which
George Pickens is looking great, but I'm with you. I mean, they just signed. They have weapons. How can nobody look good?
That's tough.
I mean, I understand Mason Rudolph, but how can Mitchell Trubisky, after being with Brian Daboll and looking good in preseason, can't separate himself from either of these guys? And then
I don't think Mitchell Trubisky is very good. So I'm not.
Well, who told you about Kenny Pickett?
Who you mean? Did you?
I said that Kenny Pickett is not going to be very good, and it's going to be all about the landing spot. And talk about a team. Let me say something. Talk about a team that really should have drafted Malik Willis like all the pre-hype thought they would, because I think that Malik Willis would be pushing both Mitchell Trubisky and Mason Rudolph for the starting job.
Man, I don't think Malik Willis is that close to being a starting quarterback.
I think
but if you get him in the second round,
more talent.
Could you take in a better player with 20 pick and then gotten Willis in the second round? No, I'm with you on that. I definitely agree on that part, because Pickett is.
They should have passed on Pickett.
I think all of the quarterbacks in this class are going to end up probably not being great, but there's a chance that the guy here might be the best one. So we'll give you that. All right. Good catch there, Jacob. By the way, speaking of catches on things we missed earlier, Donovan said, what about, I'm excited to see how disruptive Rashad Weaver is. He is in the same category as Caleb Farley to me on Thursday night. I want to see Farley and Weaver. Those are two guys that got injured in last year's draft class that I think have really big roles in this team that I want to see play well. So
back to Brady Cook in Missouri. So good thing, bad thing?
So I think it's good that he named him this early in camp. Okay. Always a good thing when the decision is easy. That is always a good thing for your team. But what's interesting about Brady Cook is that his head coach, Eli Drinkowitz, spent the entire offseason saying, please come play quarterback for me.
Yeah.
Like he tried to get Jaden Daniels. He tried to get all these transfers to come to Columbia. And he said, please come play for me. And Brady Cook looked at him and said, I'm just going to beat them all. And even though Eli did that all offseason, Brady Cook just said, that's fine. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to keep my head down. I'm going to put blinders on. I'm going to compete. I'm going to compete. And then, he played at the end of the year. I think it's good that it happened early. They've got a couple of younger players on that team that could be nice quarterbacks. Missouri's not a great team. They're probably not a bowl team. They're probably one of only two that's not a bowl team. But Eli's a good coach, and I think they're recruiting well, and they need to see some development at quarterback. So just keep an eye on that. If you get Missouri later in the year, Tennessee, I think
maybe they could be clicking.
The offense could be a little bit more dangerous, and so that's something to keep an eye on there as well.
LSU's dropping hints at their quarterback competition. What have you heard about that or seen about that?
Garrett Nussmeier is the wild card there. Jaden Daniels, the Arizona State transfer, is there, of course, and then Miles Brennan, who's been injured and been there for like 1,000 years, is there. Mike Denbrock, the offensive coordinator, says we need the guy that can do all the things. That is clearly Jaden Daniels.
Gotcha.
If Jaden Daniels, the problem is the very next sentence out of the offensive coordinator's mouth is, but we need to protect the football. And that is also part of Jaden Daniels' problem. So I think they clearly want Jaden Daniels to be the starter. He's the most talented.
So what you're saying is they need a perfect quarterback.
They need to
we want
a guy who makes plays. No, what they want though is somebody like Jimbo Fisher at A&M doesn't necessarily want the guy who runs around. Let's say, whereas this offense at LSU, they do want somebody that can run around a little.
You kind of look at Ian Book, kind of that
kind of thing. Yeah. So that's going to be a fascinating one. I don't think we're going to know the answer to that question, and there could be some changes happening. Garrett Nussmeier is the wild card because he's the one that could do it all and protect the football. He's just younger and inexperienced, so we'll see. But keep an eye on Garrett Nussmeier at LSU.
Auburn seems to be narrowing the field, right?
They're going to have a scrimmage on Saturday. They're going to narrow it to probably 2. It's probably already been limited to 3, which is Robbie Ashford, TJ Finley, and Zach Calzada, the guy who beat Alabama last year. Sorry, Zach. I think it is Finley and Calzada to start. I think Calzada wins the job and is the starter from who I've talked to. And then the follow-up on that is that I would not be surprised if Robbie Ashford at some point wins the job later on in the year, especially if things are going haywire on the plains, which we know tends to happen at Auburn later in the year. So just keep an eye on that one. That should be trimmed down to 2 players by the weekend, which again is coming up in a couple days.
And let's talk about one of the most important battles in all of college football. One of the most important season-changing, season-defining decisions that any team can make is resting over at Texas A&M.
Gig'em. I agree. I think it is the single most important quarterback decision in all of college football, because if they get it right and they pick Haynes King, who is the second-year player who was the starter last year, who got hurt after 2 games, or Max Johnson, who threw like 27 touchdown passes last year and was pretty good, and again was an LSU player last year. It's down to those 2. If they get a guy that makes the offense go at Texas A&M, they could challenge for a playoff spot. They could challenge for an 11-win season and maybe sneak into the playoff. I don't think they're going to beat Alabama. But if they make the wrong choice, this team could easily be 7-5, 8-4, way underachieve expectations, lose to good teams in the West, and be a total dumpster fire. And people be very upset with Jimbo Fisher after all the offseason that he's had, yelling at people and screaming at people, which I'm sure goes over quite well with my co-host here. So I think that is the biggest decision by any coach on any team in all of college football, is picking the right guy to run that offense. And I think it'll be Haynes King, because he can do more with his legs. And if they fit and it works, A&M could be special. If it's the wrong choice, A&M has lived their entire life underachieving. I don't know why
more underachieving.
I don't know why it would be different.
I'll be happy.
So that's your update from SEC, as well as all the way around the NFL as well. Stoney says it's not SEC, but man, what is Wake Forest going to do without Sam Hartman? How many people watching this show care about Wake Forest football? That's my question. Sam Hartman is great. I saw
this Sam Hartman thing trending, but I didn't know why. Sam Hartman
is great.
I thought he was a soccer player or something.
Sam Hartman is a great quarterback. He's played like 50 games for Wake Forest, got them to the ACC championship game. It is a non-football medical issue that he has to rehab. And from what I have been told is that it is not an off-the-field issue. It is a physical injury that happened in another situation. I think with potentially, we'll call it an upper body injury. How about that?
Yeah.
And that's a really unfortunate thing because he's a really great player, and it changes the dynamic of the ACC race. So look at that, a Wake Forest question on a football show. Something I did not expect today.
You never know what's going to happen in that chat.
There you go. Thanks, Stoney, for throwing it out there. I think that just about does it. A special thanks to Weiss Liquors, of course. Check this out right here. This cool sign we got back here. Weiss Liquors, of course. Uber Eats, search Weiss Liquors. They'll deliver booze right to your house in as quickly as 20 minutes. When you go into the store, closest one to the Titan Stadium, to stock up on your tailgate, pop in, say 440, get your 10% off. That's basically tax-free booze. Kingston Group, buildkg.com, of course. Nashville's locally owned custom home and remodeling firm. If you have any questions or decisions, big ones, financial ones about your house, I don't know why you would not consult with the experts first before you make any of those decisions. That is, of course, the Kingston Group. Zach, where can people find you and where can they get involved?
At F-Words Pod, and you can get involved by going on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, and subscribing to 440 Sports, Broadway Sports Media, Football and Other F-Words, Braden Gall, at Braden Gall. Always,
easy there, soldier.
Your other stuff. But at Braden Gall, you turn on all the notifications everywhere that you find those accounts and be ready to jump in, because it's going to be a great Titans football season. It's going to be an interesting preseason, and I think it's going to be fun. I mean, everybody talks bad about preseason, but last year, because we were kind of robbed of preseason a couple years before, was a great preseason to watch, in my opinion. I watched every game.
It's way more fun this year.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be more fun this year.
It's going to be a ton of fun. And, of course, if you want a special event or a small private event or some video or audio production, thecastcollective.com, which is the studio we are sitting in, this beautiful, awesome place that we do the show. Make sure you check them out on Instagram and on the webs, the .coms there. Also right here on Music Row in the heart of Nashville, all that great stuff. I think that just about does it. Are you gambling on a preseason football game?
I put down 2 units on plus 165 for the Titans to break the Ravens 20-game streak today.
Just like straight up win?
Straight up outright win. So I saw someone else paired it with a minus 2.5 Giants, which I thought was kind of crazy to me.
You're parlaying preseason football.
So someone else did. I did.
Not you. I just mean anyone.
Yeah. Craig. I don't know if he's watching, but Craig did it.
Come on, Craig. That's a problem. That's a sign that you have a problem. You should seek help. Maybe listening to our show. Zach, thank you, man, for hanging out. Always a pleasure. We'll talk to you guys on Monday live. of course, right here on A Football Show. My name's Braden Gall. Thanks for hanging out. Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy the game. This has been A Football Show.